Welcome to the Obvious Podcast. This episode doesn't have an episode number because it's a very special episode about Charlie Kirk. My name is Sonny Macon.
And I'm Peter Daiga, the president and CEO of ABC Florida East Coast.
And if you enjoy the show, just look at the show notes. We've been discussing how we want to handle this tragedy that happened a few days ago. Peter and I have had many conversations about what we want to say on the subject. I know a lot's been said already. And when I saw the video, unfortunately, I got a text from a friend of mine saying Charlie Kirk's been shot in the neck.
We were unfortunately celebrating.
Yeah, that's right. We had an amazing day that day. So I was on a very emotional high when the text came. Yeah. And of course, your first thought is he's been shot in the neck, but you obviously want to assume the best and that he'll.
Well, even preliminarily, I think some of the reports were, he was rushed to the hospital. There was even some report he was stabilized and incredible, I don't know. So, people's emotions were all over the place. But, anybody who saw it, I think after assessing it after the fact, it was like there was no way he was going to survive.
And, when the news broke, I at least, and like most people, instantly had some ideas like, okay, I guarantee you, or I bet this happened, or it was this kind of person, that kind of person. And I just knew that I wanted to talk about this on our show with you because a lot of what sort of my initial suspicions were and your initial suspicions were seemed to be playing out, right?
Well, it's not rocket science, unfortunately. Some people want to play stupid, but it's not rocket science to them where the violence is coming from and who's promoting it and whatnot. So. Even that's controversial, apparently, to say that. But,
I know. So one of the points I really wanted to make, and you and I have discussed this, we always talk on the show about how you don't hate the media enough, and I know hate's become a controversial word, so, whatever, replace it with something else. But the contempt that we have for the media just only grows every time. So when this whole thing happened, within hours, I started seeing this is no different. This, the both sidisms, right? And how, and a lot of people were citing this poor lady out of Minnesota who was a member of their legislature who was killed by obviously a mentally unstable man. I've read some articles where they say he might have been pro-life and that he was driven by that. I've read some articles that he knew the lady and it was a very sort of individually targeted assassination.
The shocking thing about the Charlie Kirk assassination is not that another person was killed. That happens all the time in this country, unfortunately. I mean, it happens way too often. This country or any other country for that matter. That's not the distinction, right?
Well,
she was killed, yes, and it was. Greg Gutfeld recently did a really good defense of that on the Five, because he was responding to one of the liberal co-hosts on the show, who was trying to make this point of, it happens everywhere, the equalism or the both sides, both sidism or whatnot. So, and he was trying to make this point that those two are nowhere near the same thing. This guy was killed and assassinated for his beliefs. All right. It wasn't just a criminal act. He was targeted.
Right. But let's back that up. That whole point that he was killed for his beliefs. But for years he was demonized. Right. And my mind immediately went to Trump, who has been for 10 years demonized.
Sure. And the subject of two assassination attempts as well.
And the subject of two assassination attempts.
So I don't know whatever happened to the simple, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. So, now we've apparently come to the point where, names apparently are, it's justifiable to kill somebody because of the names they say or the words they say.
Right.
I don't know, Sonny, I still, here we are talking about it, obviously when we're doing a show, it's, some period of time after these public events. But we've all went through that period of, anger, shock, and even now, talking about it and bringing it up. I don't want to be an animal like the people we're accusing who can't even, tolerate conversation anymore.
Well,
but I also am angry. At what point do you say enough is enough and push back, or do you just be a doormat?
Well,
and be walked all upon?
there's been a lot of conversations about why, right? And I think one of the things that I have not seen talked about is the role of education in all of this. And I look at the young men who are doing the guy who tried to take out Trump, this guy. And a lot of these are young people, this acceptance of socialism. And in light of post Charlie Kirk, there's been a lot of teachers and professors who have publicly gone out and sort of been happy about the assassination. And it got me really thinking about the role that the brainwashing and the propaganda that happens in our education.
This particular case really brings that to the forefront, because what we've learned about his upbringing, the state he lived in, the community he lived in, his family, his siblings, is so counter to the hate that drove him to commit this, this murderous assassination.
Yeah.
So that leads to the necessary conclusion that something stronger, something that overcame and changed an entire lifetime of values and education happened. And it happened quick.
Happened very quick.
It happened within years of this young man's life.
Yeah, I know.
Now the only positive thing out of this is the president and the administration we have now is actually, I think, going to look at those contributing factors. Whether it's those, what do they call them? Those online dark web groups, and chat rooms and whatnot. Those different social media groups that were advocating hate and violence and whatnot. Some of the NGOs, some of the George Soros funded, efforts and whatnot for demonstrating in this country, and all of this is going to be looked into. I mean, in my mind, in my book, this is exactly why the RICO statute was created.
Yeah.
And so the only positive thing that I can see right now out of all this, aside from some people are talking about an awakening, and there's some initial polling results, some of which, like a lot of polls, you can take nuggets that are very positive. But one poll I saw recently was a quarter of young people 18 to 25 said the world is a better place now that Charlie Kirk has been assassinated. 1 out of every 4.
Wow.
Whatever happened to a culture where we can, you want to talk about unity and trying to come together, where we can at least agree on, no, the world is not a better place because somebody was killed. Maybe
there's two polls that I've read in the last few days. One was by YouGov, and one was by Rutgers. Neither organization can be accused of being a flaming right-wing, organization. Where in both of those polls, the younger people and the Democrats, the left-wing people, certainly were way more accepting of political violence than the people on the right.
Right.
And polling backs it up.
Yeah.
Right? And certainly actions.
I've seen multiple. There's been multiple polls that kind of have talked about that, which is, anyway. There's plenty of writing on the wall, plenty of signals, plenty of indications that we've got big problems as a culture.
What irritates the crap out of me is this: for years we've been told words are violent, right? Words are the equivalent of bullets. And when the bullets actually do fly, first of all, they're extremely one-sided. Like this lady out of Minnesota, the politician who was killed, she was not demonized for years by the media. Nobody knew her name.
Correct.
Right?
Well, that was part of Greg Gutfeld. That's exactly right. This wasn't like an ongoing, for years people demonized them and threatened her life. It was a crime.
Right. That was a crime.
Not a
assassination.
A culmination of years and years of threats. And anyway.
And this whole trans thing, right? Like this connection you see with the school shootings, the Catholic Church shooting, the Nashville Christian school shooting. I think there's been 5 or 6 recent shootings that were all done by trans people. And I read a quote years ago from a lady named Byron Katie, who's an American writer. And I don't know much about her, but deals in the area of depression. There was a quote I read, and I looked it up, and it made me think of the trans community. The only time we suffer is when we believe a thought that argues with what is. And it really kind of struck me that so much of this acceptance of what isn't, right? Like trying to pretend what isn't is, has caused so much pain. I mean, it's caused so much pain for the trans people, but it has also caused a lot of pain for the community, for our young people. And I've been reading recently about this guy, the Charlie Kirk assassin, was in these chat groups that were specifically Just trans people, a month before this happened, were talking about the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of that. I found out in the last few days what a furry is. I had no idea such a thing even existed.
Yeah, I still don't. Clarify for me.
It's apparently a community of people who like to dress up as animals for sexual pleasure.
Okay.
And I kind of stopped reading past that because it was just such a jarring definition to me. But apparently this guy became a part of that. The Kirk assassin was part of that community. And then the whole trans thing. And I just, my gosh, all I can think is Rush Limbaugh calling liberalism a mental disorder. And it's just that phrase just echoes in my mind again and again. And just the rabbit holes that these people go down on. And now that you all have, there's a comedian we love, Sebastian Maniscalco. He's an Italian guy and he makes a lot of Italian jokes. And he does a whole joke about how, in the 80s, if you were just a weirdo who liked to, wear a diaper as an adult, you were just a neighborhood weirdo who wore a diaper as an adult. But now you can find other weirdos and you all egg on each other. And it's this community that just allows groupthink delusion. Is that even a thing?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And they all kind of live in that, and then this all becomes real. And then they take out a guy like that.
Yeah.
And it's just obviously it's frustrating and it's angering, and to live in a world where I saw this reporter yesterday asking Trump about the Milwaukee the Minnesota woman again. Well, why didn't he lower the flag for her? Mm-hmm. And Trump was like, well, if the governor would have asked me, I would have. I didn't know who she was.
Right.
It's just insane to me.
Yeah, but that's kind of back to my point. With this country doesn't lower the flag to half-mast, for every murder victim.
Right.
That's not what we do. Otherwise, it'd be perpetually at half-mast. We're a big country with a lot of people, and there's unfortunately a lot of murders. By the way, we turn a blind eye when it's happening in Democrat-controlled cities, and you have a president who wants to try to, stop it.
Yeah, there's no crime in blue cities.
Right. Yeah, right. So anyways, it's silly. It's stupid. I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the stupidity and the silliness.
Yeah.
And I'm angry.
The unwillingness to accept reality, right? To be told that your own eyes are lying to you, to be told what you see is not really there, right? Mm-hmm.
We tolerated it for far too long, and we're still tolerating it too much, in my opinion, in many circles. And it's somehow a big controversy today to say that no, that there's only two sexes, there's only men and women. This is science. Supposedly, we're a country where people believe in science.
Yeah. I saw this. But
somehow that's controversial. We tolerate stupidity and this stuff way too much.
Yeah, we do.
And you know what? It's not also as a big thing about how, so now the right wing is for, cancel culture. There is a big difference between advocating the death and celebrating the death of someone and losing your job for that. I mean, you've seen stories of doctors who have done this. It's like you're in the medical profession of saving people's lives and you're cheering the assassination and the murder of someone?
Yeah.
Yeah. You should lose your job for that.
Yeah. Free speech has consequences. You're not immune from the consequences of free speech. This morning I saw a quote from 3.5 years ago from that lady from Somalia who's the congresswoman from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. The one that married her brother.
Yeah, the brother wife.
3.5
years ago, because people were getting in trouble for criticizing the George Floyd thing, and she had a tweet. It's still up there about how free speech has consequences, and you lose your job over it. You lose your job over it. Don't whine about it, right? Mm-hmm. And now, within the last few days, she took the complete opposite position, where look at the right, they're all for censorship, they're all for cancel culture. It's when it's against their guy that they're all for it. So, I mean, obviously the hypocrisy is never ending, and
it's amazing the left is so incapable of nuance. To be able to say, I don't celebrate the killing or murder of anyone, but I could still disagree with someone.
Right.
They can't even make that little nuance.
Yeah. The only person I've heard say that is Bill Maher. That's it. I've not heard anybody else say that.
Right.
And not that I'm an expert, not that I know what everybody has said, but I've been reading a lot about this over the last few days since this happened. And to me, the part of the reason why Charlie Kirk was on the university campus was, there has been acceptance, especially on the right, that most of this propaganda and brainwashing starts in college.
Sure.
So we're going to show up, and when the whole thing with Gaza happened and the Gaza protests, we were like, oh, look, see, it is the colleges. I'm really starting to wonder if it's way sooner than that.
Sure.
Right? It's not
sure
just,
it is.
It's schools, it's high schools, it's middle schools. It's
what about media and what we're exposed to on TV, and what about social media, and what about gaming? And sure, I mean, there's ways, I think, from the various earliest of ages, that we start this poisoning, if you will, or this any event. And then even the strongest and solidest of upbringings, although, we have to be careful to judge too closely. There are a lot of big variations, right, between a family that in a very right of center area of the country or even of the state who may profess, a Christian faith, but, there's a wide spectrum of how somebody may have been raised in that environment, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's widely reported that, that his upbringing, was clearly something different than would motivate someone to assassinate somebody because he disagreed with his views and what he said.
He gave into the propaganda. I do love. It just cracks me up that I read a bunch of these tweets that because his parents were together, because his dad was law enforcement,
right?
Because they were from Utah. Right. There's no way he could have been a Democrat, right? And I just laughed. I was like, so. All right, so if you're from a two-parent family and your dad's in law enforcement, there's no way you're going to be a Democrat. I mean, that's what the Democrats were saying that.
Right, the irony, they're basically saying, no Democrats ever work for law enforcement or have two-parent families.
Or have two-parent families,
Again, more of the absurdity we got to push back against, I think. So,
exactly.
Charlie, I don't think was assassinated because it was a particular new idea, although he did it very well, reached out to areas that in traditional or more, what am I trying to say? In other times, we're kind of off bounds. We didn't really, and I by the way, I see a lot of that in Trump too, and I think that's why he's hated so much. And I think that's why Charlie was hated so much, but it really was because he was effective at it. Mm-hmm. If he was ineffective at doing that, he probably wouldn't have generated as much hate.
Yeah. I mean, he made a difference, right? He was a difference maker for sure.
Exactly. He was effective at what he did. It wasn't just what he did, but he was very effective at it, and that's what really... they can tolerate somebody maybe breaking new barriers, like Trump, reaching out to minority communities, the Hispanics and blacks and people that traditionally have been off bounds for Republicans. It's one of the things I've early on fell in love with Trump because I've been involved in politics my whole life, and I've always believed, going back, many, many years, that we know this by for example, the African American community and families are very conservative when it comes to values. And it always stupefied me that we didn't.
I have to tell you the story. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to tell you the story. So I read. I was on socials yesterday. I see this post, and it's from the account pictures of a white guy, right? And it says, "Here is Charlie Kirk's blatant racism. I'm going to leave it there," right? I'm like, okay, I got to hear this because this guy was always on video. So if he's a racist, a fascist, there's got to be evidence of this, right? So he plays this video of Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk is basically saying, look, the death of fatherhood has been dismal for the black community. They live in poverty. Education.
It's been dismal for everybody, but
it
accentuated a little worse.
Accentuated, because he gave the statistic like in the 50s, something like 70, 80% grew up in two-parent homes, and now it's like 20% or 25%. And how he wants them to be successful, and he wants them to be part of the American dream, and and the comments in response to this, mainly from African Americans, was about how this was not a racist post, and they agreed with him. And it's the white liberals that are losing their mind over this.
So it was a white liberal that was claiming just because he said this, somehow that's testimony to his racism.
But then if you read the comments, it's like,
sure.
Black account after black account after black account saying, no, I'm black, I agree with this. I'm black, I agree with this.
again, I mean, I don't know.
your point.
It was always a frustration to me, knowing that, and obviously the same is true, I think, of the Hispanic community. I mean, they're both it's Latinos and blacks are probably more conservative value-wise than mainstream, white people.
Yeah.
But they've just been off bounds. Republicans, the Bushes and the Romneys and I don't know, who am I missing? For years, McCain's would never pursue those people, and Trump did. Trump is.
Yeah. They even made Romney's racist. Remember that?
Oh yeah, they'll make every, they'll say you're the greatest thing since sliced bread when it's primary time. But then once you win it, then it's all of a sudden you hate dogs and you strap them to the top of your roof. They'll come after you.
They made McCain a racist. Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah. So I don't know where we go from here, Sonny. Honestly, I mean, it's the problems are so deep rooted, and again, I can't say enough about the fact that something so strong that in a very short few years overcame everything this kid had going for him.
Yeah.
To where the furthest thing in his thought probably ever should have been or would have been in a Christian culture should be or would be the farthest from your thought of assassinating or killing someone or murdering them. It's kind of at the top of the list of the thou shalt nots.
Yeah.
It's one of the obvious ones that is the hardest to do away with.
Yeah.
We can play around and make fuzzy all the others, but the do not kill, is kind of.
I remember I was in high school sitting in church. Pastor said there will come a time where they're going to hate God in this country, and they're going to hate God's word in this country, and they're going to criticize you and persecute you for being a Christian. And I just was like, what the hell is he talking about? Because this is in the 90s. I couldn't imagine, right? And here we are, 25 years later, where everything that Christians believe is now considered anathema.
Can you imagine where we'd be right now speaking if Kamala had won this election?
Oh my gosh, no, I can't. I can't even imagine where the woke movement would be at this point. I mean,
anyway, we have some blessings and some things to be thankful for.
Yeah, we do.
If there's any chance at all in instilling, but again, I think we've got to bring back obviously consequences, shaming, because people cannot be. Look, it's nothing new to say that the human nature is tainted.
Nothing new.
Nothing new.
History.
The human nature is tainted, and without the proper guardrails, without call it whatever you want. This is should not be surprising.
Yeah.
It was the obvious podcast. It should be obvious that so we need in a society. So so again, there's got to be consequences. People have to be brought to justice. This is what I said earlier. I love the fact that we have an administration that is actually going to not stop at just the perpetrator. There was something that changed him in a very short period. It's perfectly okay in my book that we as a government and society needs to find out what force enables someone to think it's okay to murder and assassinate someone.
Yeah.
And then it's not just the person who pulled the trigger, but there are contributing forces and groups and people. And
so I'm reading this book called Influence it's an older book. It's a professor out of Pennsylvania, Robert Cialdini, I think is the guy's name, and I'm sure I'm butchering it. And it's a book about sort of like being good at kind of communicating your brand and sales and things like that. And one of the things he talks about, it's a concept called social proof, and the idea that we as people, when we think everybody's doing it, we want to do it. So the first example he uses in the chapter, if you go into a restaurant and they have done experiments on this, and they'll pick a dish and they'll just say, this is our number one seller. And from 50 to 60%, there's a jump in the sales of that dish, that entree. Yeah. And the idea that the whole sort of explanation behind reviews, of products on social media. And so social proof makes you think this is something that everybody's doing. And I started thinking about social proof and its relation to social media and how you got to say at least 60, 70, 80% of this country is a traditional country, right? People living in a traditional life and having jobs and living the normal life. and the 10, 15, 20, whatever the number is, that's just sort of fringe. But if you that's all you engage in and that's all you see.
That's right.
And all you do is go on Discord, which I had never heard of until a few days ago. You go on Discord and you live in this world with like 10 trans people and you think this is what the whole world agrees with you.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
I think there's more and more
delusion has
there's more and more acknowledgement and recognition, I think, of the problem, if you will, of social media and whatnot. But we're never putting that genie back in the bottle, are we?
No, I think there's no way.
So I don't know what the I don't know what the solution is. It's no doubt in my mind that I think by and large, while there's been some positive things maybe that have come out of it, there's certainly an awful lot of negative. I think we can attribute a lot of, as you just said, for example, the power of thinking something as twisted or bad as it may be, thinking it's normal somehow because you're able to validate it within a social media circle as opposed to before. It would be much harder, to validate that. Anyway, I don't know what the solution is. I'm a believer in prayer. I'm also a believer in we're pilgrims here, right? I mean, this is a suffering
temporary life.
This is a suffering existence, right? Pick up your cross daily, and there's while there's many glories, in my opinion, of our right here and life and family and love. Compassion and nature, and it's a fallen world, and we can just pray for His kingdom come, as here on earth, and as soon as possible. Because
Amen. The one thing I learned from The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis is that God doesn't ordain evil, but He uses evil for His glory, and I can see that happening in the Kirk thing. Just this impact that his death is having. I mean, I was no Kirk expert. Like, I knew who he was. I knew what he talked about, but I didn't.
I mean, we all saw the videos.
Yeah.
I mean, he couldn't escape.
Yeah, couldn't escape his videos.
His conversations, his conflict.
And that's an interesting point. I was talking to my daughter, and who's in college. Well, both of them are in college, but my older one was telling me, like, a lot of these children or kids her age have grown up with him.
Yeah.
Because they've all grown up on the internet, and one of the flip sides where you have all the evil and the darkness. But if you were in your 20s, you've known the name Kirk your whole life because you've seen clips of him your whole life. And
by the way, isn't it funny? Maybe this is a good thing to end on. All the ones you see, they're not him talking with people he agreed with.
Yeah.
Every single one of them was people he disagreed with. Because that's what again. So.
He always said, the minute you stop talking, that's when bullets fly.
We have a clip, right? We want to end the show.
We're going to end the show with that clip.
So I don't know. So
keep praying.
Keep praying. It's
keep believing.
I don't know. It's a very dark period. I think that it is a very quintessential moment. I think in this country. I'm not sure what that means. In terms of will we be better because of this or worse? Will we find a way out of this hatred and this intolerance? I mean, what an irony, right? The intolerance.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Lack of diversity in thinking, right?
Yeah. I'm speechless. I really am. And it's a weird thing to say when you host a podcast, but how do you, and I think you were going to see, I think the greatest thing that'll come out of this is you'll realize that you are not alone, right? Like the majority is with you, right? You're not. It's the kooks, the killers are in the minority.
Yeah.
No matter what, and I think about the Catholic school that was in Wisconsin, right? That was just a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Just the stuff and I can't even remember if it was a boy or a girl, like that person left behind.
Yeah, shooting up kids
in a church while they were in mass praying.
Couldn't even face them. By the way,
from a parking lot.
From a psychological perspective.
Yeah,
shot them up from outside the building.
Couldn't even get into the church to do it. Yeah. So it's a dark place, but you have to know you're not alone. You have to know you're not in the minority. Most people.
Let's expect better.
Yeah,
of our leaders.
Yeah.
Let's bring
our media
Yeah, so for sure. So
thank you for joining us.
All right. Till next time.
When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity. Marriages break apart when you stop talking, churches fall apart. And I think what makes this country on the verge of going to a place we don't want it to go right now is we're afraid to go to places like this and have these conversations. I'm not.